Two people were killed in Poland yesterday after Soviet-era missiles of an unidentified origin were dropped on farmland near the Ukrainian border. Polish and NATO officials confirmed early this morning that despite initial speculation, there is nothing to indicate the rocket was a Russian attack on Poland. In fact, initial investigations indicate the missile was likely launched by Ukrainian forces in defense of the country's energy grid. Here's NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg after yesterday's emergency meeting.
We have no indication that this was the result of a deliberate attack. And we have no indication that Russia is preparing offensive military actions against NATO.
Well, a little too close for comfort there.
Yeah, so as many people pointed out, what was most concerning about this was the kind of reaction that came from Ukrainian officials, including Zelensky, before the origin of the missile had been identified. So, he was saying NATO needs to act, declaring that this was a Russian missile strike, describing it as a very serious escalation. This is exactly the scenario that so many people have been warning about, and why having a proxy war of this nature with countries that are bound by Article 5 is so dangerous. And the kind of escalatory language that came out of Ukraine before the facts were even known, pushing for further engagement, pushing for World War III. I mean, World War III was trending on Twitter for exactly this reason, and it doesn't give people a lot of assurance to know that this is basically who's running Ukraine, this kind of energy that doesn't seem to really be accommodating the risks at play here.
Sure, and I get the Polish authorities' point that they're very much not blaming Ukraine. They're saying, well, Ukraine is defending itself from Russian missiles. This is very tragic, but we don't hold Ukraine responsible. They're defending themselves. In fact, if we're holding anyone responsible, we're holding Russia for engaging, for being the ones aggressing in this war that caused this result. Which I take all of that. I think that makes intuitive sense. Yes, this is Russia's fault. Yes, Russia should desist from this aggressive effort to occupy Ukraine, which has brought us to the brink of World War III. But we don't have that much power. Unfortunately, we can't just, us pontificating about it, we can't snap our fingers and make Putin stop doing this. I wish we could, but we can't. We have control over what the U.S. does, and we have control over what money and funding we give and what strings come attached with that. So we can set some terms in what the dialogue and the discourse should be like from our allies who I understand are defending themselves. But we can't put the entire planet at risk over a territorial dispute.
Right. Well, so as you probably remember, there was a big brouhaha just a week or two ago over the CPC letter, which was pushing for peace for these kinds of reasons, saying, obviously this is going to end a negotiation. Obviously the risk of World War III and having an engagement with a nuclear power like this are very high. It seems like a no-brainer to say peace is the solution. That got a lot of pushback, as we covered extensively on this show and on my own, including from Bernie, foreign policy advisor, someone who has a long history of working in the denuclearization space as a progressive, who was very critical of the idea of anybody pushing for negotiations, saying that it was tantamount to setting the terms of Ukraine bending the knee and surrendering.
I think
basically.
He said you were glossing over dead children in mass graves.
Correct.
You personally.
Correct.
Briahna.
I have been accused of being a genocide denier in the wake of that interview. Interestingly, though, the tide has seemed to have turned. Shortly after all of that went down, the Biden administration started very publicly talking about its negotiations with Russia and Ukraine. And now, just
nice
yesterday,
to know we got through to him. We got through to Joe.
Just yesterday, Joe Cirincione had a wheel turn as well, tweeting, "The Ukraine war must end as quickly as possible. I strongly support peace, negotiations, and diplomacy." Now, this was the kind of statement that got you labeled as a Putin puppet, treasonous genocide lover just a couple of weeks ago. And so I say that only to say it seems like we're moving in the right direction, and events like this missile bombing, this accident, I think are going to only contribute to jolting people into realizing what the stakes are here.
Mm-hmm. And we interviewed Representative Ro Khanna yesterday on the show. It's a great interview. Everybody should check that out. One of the only, maybe he was literally the only Democrat who participated in that letter who did not cowardly walk it back or renounce his support for it. He said, no, I still support it. It was a very mild letter, et cetera. now would be a great time to hear from more of the Republicans in the House, for whom unlimited funding to Ukraine is something they said would be put under scrutiny, under increased scrutiny, given what's going on. Obviously, we're going to talk more about the battle for control of the House, not for control of the House. Control of the House is pretty safely, slightly safely in Republican hands now. But who is actually going to be the Speaker of the Republicans? Probably Kevin McCarthy, but there's more to work out there, and what that means for U.S.'s Ukraine policy will remain to be seen. But yes, it's mistakes happen in war. You blow up the wrong thing, friendly people get killed. American forces were killed by Americans in Iraq and Afghanistan, and probably every war we've ever participated in. Missiles cross border, bad things can happen.
And what if
that
this
can
happened?
touch off, that could touch off global catastrophe, and that's why it is so important to put an end to this before something goes, the wrong commando on a submarine presses the wrong button, and we have World War III.
Look, this was an accident, right? And we accept, the international community is accepting that it was an accident, that Ukraine didn't mean to kill these two Polish people, because there's no motive there.
Right.
There's a world where it could also be a Russian accident, and where the world would not accept the motive as accident. They would not accept the premise that Russia accidentally killed two Polish individuals. And now we're in World War III. And so everyone should just really sit with that and think about that counterfactual and what that means, for the survival of our society.
Absolutely. All right, well, we'll have more Rising right after this. Stay with us.